Welcome to Business at the Speed of Coffee, the one show for business, by business, about business. Today, people are concerned about losing jobs to technology. They talk about avatars, talk bots, and of course other technology that seems to be taking over their lives. Lots of people talk about it, but few know anything about it at all. One person over in New Zealand has pioneered in this area and has made a lifetime living out of technology. He's been to Silicon Valley, been there, done that, and most recently sold a business called Power by Proxy to Apple Computers. And now he's working on Soul, which is an avatar business. Get that, avatars. So to hear all about it and his story, we welcome Gregg Cross. Welcome, Gregg.
Hey, Kim.
To Business at the Speed of Coffee.
Great to see you.
Always in technology.
Pretty
Life
much.
started for you somewhere in Hamilton, is that right?
Well, born in Auckland.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, although my parents are school teachers, so yeah, very New Zealand upbringing. Lived mainly in the countryside growing up. Primary school teachers in rural New Zealand. So initially Taranaki, and then a lot of time in the Waikato, just outside of Te Awamutu, before I got shipped off back to boarding school in Auckland at Auckland Grammar School. So so that's kind of the formative years.
It is important, I think, for our viewers to understand. Now, we had a very successful business, because you're going to hear about somebody who's very successful. But you didn't finish university.
Yeah, no. So I spent 5 years at Auckland Grammar at Tibbs House at the boarding school. Didn't have a clue what I wanted to do with my life. No concept of a gap year back in those days. So, my parents said I should go to university, so I went to university. Had no idea what I wanted to study. They said I should study business, which in those days was boring stuff like accounting and law. And so, I lasted about 6 months, and it just wasn't for me. And that's where I really got lucky, and our lives connected at Trigon. Yeah. So the guy that shaped my life and my career in a big way was Bill Foreman, as he did with many
Bill was a visionary, and Trigon in those days was a real go-go place. So that was basically your first job, wasn't it? Working in the office there.
Yeah, as a management cadet. We'd call them interns today, but a management cadet or a management trainee was what I was there. So I got to spend 6 months literally working in every department in Trigon.
But you showed early promise and an interest in the technology part of it. And Bill in those days was getting interested in, and he wanted to be ahead of the game with computers, didn't he?
Yeah, well, Bill had spent millions of dollars on, mini computers, one of the first mini computer setups in New Zealand, and literally millions of dollars on something that has about 1/10 of the power of the smartphone we carry in our pocket. So give your viewers some context of how much the world has changed. So Bill had been trying to develop a computer system that he could use to run his business and manage his business and make smarter decisions about his business. And in those days, you used computer scientists who wore white coats to do that stuff. And Bill had fired, I think, 2 or 3 sets of those guys. And I guess out of frustration, I was a 20-something-year-old kid, and he turned around and said, well, you know my business, you go figure it out. And that's really how my career in tech started. I spent 6 months in rotation, learning about what he'd bought and how it worked, and then I just started taking a really pragmatic approach. We could make this work by in little bite-sized chunks.
In partnership with the Fact Boys in those days it started.
Yeah.
Because I know that there was a problem getting a system that would marry up manufacturing processes with accounting and costing and so forth.
Yeah.
And that was one of the very early startups. Which
So Fact was literally one of the first software companies to really evolve in New Zealand. Along with a bunch of others, companies that are about today. These were the very formative years of the tech industry. So Fact was one of the first software companies, and after I think I spent about 7 years at Trigon, and probably 5 of those, making the computer system work. I set up Fact in the US, so that was literally, I went from living in Hamilton to living in Boston. So
tell us about that experience. Where did you go?
It's one of those things you look back at and say, how do you even believe you could even do this? And it was really I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know. So, if you don't know what you don't know, how can you be scared of it? So you just put one foot in front of the other and you go do it. And literally, that was what I did.
And did you actually get any software programs going in the States?
Yeah. So we set up Fact International in Boston. So back in those days, the computer industry was really centered around MIT and Route 128. And Silicon Valley was just starting to emerge in those days. This was mid-80s. The PC industry was just starting to emerge around that era of time. Microsoft, Apple were all brand new companies. So I moved to Boston, and we started from scratch, selling our systems to process-oriented manufacturing companies. I mean, I was hugely successful because I could take what I learned at Trigon, because when you think about New Zealand, there was only one Trigon, one really high-tech plastics manufacturing company in New Zealand. Well, you go to a big market like the US, and there's lots of them, so it's actually a whole market in its own right. Yeah. So I could be successful by taking my knowledge of plastics manufacturing and process-based plastics manufacturing into what's a large niche market in the US. So very successful at doing that and starting to build that. But so that was kind of where we started in the US.
What brought you home?
Well, I came back. I've been backwards and forwards across the Pacific many times in my career. I mean, so we ended up selling Fact to a Canadian company, GIAC. That took me to Toronto for a couple of years. Way too cold a place. Don't understand how Boston's cold enough, but Toronto, I just don't understand how human beings actually live there. Beautiful city, lovely people. I spent the 2 years I had to spend after we sold the company to them. I spent that there, and then. I came back and I did my two corporate stints, I call them, corporate but big startups. Yes. Bell South, so I came home, I got headhunted by the CEO of Bell South to be his 2IC and really roll out the sales and marketing of that digital cellular network. And that was a $500 million startup. Interesting times there. From there I went to Microsoft. And Microsoft was really, entering at that point, it owned the Windows computing market or the DOS computing market and the PC operating system market. So was really entering the enterprise market. So another, very entrepreneurial enterprise company at that point in time. So, and then beyond that, after that, started getting back into my entrepreneurial roots and building companies. So backwards and forwards across the Pacific a few more times at that point in time. So came home for the last time though, in just after the .com meltdown, which seems like yesterday, but it's 20 years ago. 20 years ago, and it's kind of interesting because, back in those days. I can remember, it was like April 2001, the bubble burst, and all of a sudden the internet stocks just went through the floor, and people were walking around saying, well, and this is something, I guess we'll come back to later on. People were saying, well, when's, Amazon was a bookstore in those days, a digital bookstore, an online bookstore. So when is Amazon going to go bust? When is Jeff Bezos going to go bust? Well, here we are 20 years later. And he just doesn't run an online bookstore. He's one of the
world
biggest retailers in the in the world, bar none. Yeah. He's one of the biggest and most influential technology companies in the world, bar none. And that's before we even get into the stuff he's doing in outer space and what have you. So,
interestingly, the underlying infrastructure which is driving the internet today really had its genesis in the .com boom.
It emerged,
all that fibre and stuff that went across the Atlantic, that was the beginning, and that drove the rest of the business. So at what stage did you sort of unleash the inner entrepreneur that really set you off?
I guess, look, it's like most things in life, it's just a journey. You're on a journey. So, and you can be an entrepreneur at any point in your career. Everybody thinks that tech entrepreneurs are 20-something-year-old kids, who were programmers at university. We have this thing in our education system that says, our kids need to code, because the future is technology. Well, if somebody had told me that that was the parameter on which I could have a job in the tech industry, I probably wouldn't have ever worked in the tech industry. I have no interest in coding. So, the tech industry is no different to any other industry. There are jobs for creative people. There are jobs for salespeople, for marketing people. It's an industry for everyone, coding is just one aspect of the computer industry. So these are some of the things that we've learned as we've gone along the way here, Kim. So
it would appear to me that you were able to bridge the gap between New Zealand's ideas and the money men in the US. Tell us a bit about that experience.
Yeah. So when I got back in the 99-2000 area, we sort of had a whole bunch of summits at that time, sort of the looking at the knowledge wave, I think it was called. So, and a lot, and that was one of those things, that a lot of good infrastructure came out of that. A lot of really good policy settings were made there. I mean, we saw the emergence of our incubator system. So I was very heavily involved in the Ice House, for example. We saw the initial formation of a venture capital industry for the first time in New Zealand, with the first venture funds being raised, angel capital. So Andy Hamilton, as CEO of the Ice House, bought the Tech Angels formula from California to New Zealand, 15
and it sort of worked,
years ago. Yeah, and it really worked. I mean, aspects of it really worked incredibly well. I mean, we have a large and vibrant angel investment community here. We have an interesting VC community. New Zealand does have VCs, and we have more VCs today than we used to have. I know, we talk about there not being enough venture capital funding in New Zealand. And that's something that rolls.
Is that really true though?
Well,
I mean good ideas find money, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, good ideas find money. Good team. Well, not so much good ideas. Good teams find money, Kim. So an idea doesn't make a company. An idea doesn't make it something investable. You've got to take the idea. You've got to build a product. You've got to create product market fit. You've got to create a team of people that can do it. You've got to prove that you can enter a market that will scale. So, New Zealand's not a market that scales for anything in any way or shape or form. So, for most, that could be America, or it might be China, or it might be, some other geography in the world. But you have to, VCs are looking for massive returns on their money. Well, they like it quickly, but the world's not as quick as you think it will. But returns and risks have to marry up. So risk return is the way they look at it. So they're prepared to take on risk, but they've got to see a way to return.
Well, let's take an example. We'll come to Soul in a minute, but powered by proxy. You're not a programmer, yet you took some technology. Presumably, you had engineers and people to help.
Yeah. So
can you talk about the process without getting too much away?
Yeah, of course. No, So, powered by proxy. So when I came back from my last stint in Silicon Valley in 2002, we've touched on that. Yeah. I got interested in a different type of technology. I call it deep tech, or commercializing science that exists in our universities. So I got interested in that as a specific category of tech, and through my work associated with the Ice House, which was, the University of Auckland is one of the stakeholders in the Ice House. I built a relationship there and started looking at, tech that we could spin out of the university. And so the Power by Proxy was founded based on some research that had been done really over the last 30 years by an amazing scientist, Professor John Boyce. Not many people know who John is. I mean, John, was probably, you could point to John and say, he is the guy that picked up some of the original work that Nikola Tesla did a long, long time ago, and he spent 30 years of his life, probably more now, focused on the idea of induction power and wireless charging and wireless power.
Pancake motor is one of his.
And so he had built up this, through his research, enormous portfolio of patents at the University of Auckland. I got introduced to a young student of his, Fatty Mishriki, who who was a tech guy, had got interested in wireless power, and we ended up co-founding Power by Proxy.
But somebody had to see the connection between the raw technology and what somebody might pay commercially for it. I think that's where you sort of had the
there's 2 or 3 aspects or ingredients that you need to be able to pull there. If you're going to work with deep tech, you need access to a pool of scientists and researchers. You need patented intellectual property, because these are some of the things that create value in deep tech. One of the cool things I wanted to explore about deep tech is anybody can go write another, Xero, another small business accounting system. I mean, the barriers to entry, and Xero's become a monolith and a very valuable company because they were great at selling it and marketing it and building market share. But creating another business accounting software system, pretty much anybody who's got an interest in accounting could do that. And then there are lots of people still try and do that stuff. But when you try and do deep tech, the barriers to entry are, research, science, patents. So, we started with that as a platform, and we wanted to use that to turn it into solutions for customers. And we wanted to, I guess, experiment. And for me, it was an experiment. How do we raise venture capital?
Hey, where did that money come from? From the States or from here?
Initially, from the Movac guys. One of the top venture funds here in New Zealand. Our first.
The seed capital was New Zealand?
Yeah, so the initial round of capital was from New Zealand. The seed capital was customer. We did the old-fashioned way. We bootstrapped it, and our first customer was John Deere. Yeah. On the back of that, we raised our Series A round through Movac, and then subsequently, we were able to start building technology and solutions and marketing the product offshore. And in that case, we started to attract investors like TE Connectivity, the giant industrial connectivity firm from the US and Europe.
To put some context here, how long was it from when you met up with the guys at university, saw something you felt you could do something with, to when there was actually something you could call commercial? In other words, an income that was paying maybe possibly a profit? I mean, a lot of these businesses never get to the point where they make profit. So let's talk about even an income.
Well, as I say, because we bootstrapped it, our first revenues were from our first client before we even raised capital, and that was
so you had money coming in early on.
Yeah, we had money, some money coming in early on, but when you're dealing with deep tech, funding researchers and scientists and a team of commercialization engineers, that costs money. So you get into a cycle of having to hit milestones, raise more capital, hit some more milestones.
It's a treadmill.
It's a treadmill, and the treadmill, it means you run faster and faster. As you go. So, we had TE Connectivity and Samsung Ventures, two big international funds, became part of our. Very much became part of our journey.
But to attract those sorts of people, it has to be truly novel.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be more than For when you're dealing with deep tech, yes, they're going to invest in two things. How good is the intellectual property? How good is that patent portfolio that you have there? And the second thing is, how good is the team and what markets are you trying to commercial? Do they have a view as to whether they think you can commercialise those markets? So that there's different approaches. Soul Machines is a completely different scale to.
I want to go to scale right now, but just to give the viewers a sense, in terms of impact, the technology being powered by proxy, how big is it worldwide now? I know you've sold out, but what has it become?
Well, the simplest measure I can give for you is, everybody in the world has a smartphone.
Yes.
That smartphone, a big chunk of that smartphone market is owned by Apple. They acquired the business. So every single iPhone that Apple ships today has wireless charging technology that is still being built by their wireless research team, which is still in the viaduct, here in Auckland, New Zealand. So Fatty and the Powered by Proxy's old engineering team, which is the the core of that R&D team, still based here in Auckland.
So our viewers, you pick up that cell phone, a chunk of it, still coming from Auckland.
Yeah, of course.
That's exciting. That's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting. I've built a lot of different tech companies in my life, but that's one that's touched. That's one I can say. There's a lot of people. A lot of people in the world carry, something with a piece of our technology around in their pockets. That's something, to be, enormously proud of, from my point of view. Going back to, our original inspiration here, Bill Foreman. He reinvented the courier pack industry.
I was right there at the beginning. It's another story we should tell one day.
Yeah, has to tell. That's one that nobody gets.
Yeah, I remember trying to sell those things in New York. Nobody thought it could happen. Got an order. The one thing we got was an order. Anyway, coming back to Soul, because you came to my office, I think it must be 5 years ago, and you opened up your laptop, and here is this beautiful woman, which you tell me was an avatar, and I started talking to her, and she talks back to me, and to me that was the future in my office.
Yep.
Years of research, I'm excited to announce new features in Soul Machine's Human OS that unlock the emerging field of humanized AI. So welcome to the revolutionary next generation of dynamic content awareness and interaction.
What impact ultimately this idea is going to have on all of us as we go down the track and develop it? So from there, where are we now with Soul Systems or Soul Machines?
Yeah, so we're 5 years down the track.
We've supercharged my awareness of the dynamic content around me. By using gestures and gaze direction, I ensure high-caliber messaging gets the attention it deserves. Thanks to years of research, we're making the leap from facial gestures to fully embodied gestural performance. I'll be able to use my whole body to communicate from head to toe. And all the while I'm serving brand new cinematic cuts that boost focus and direct attention. Best of all, it happens autonomously, in real time, without writing a single line of code.
So we're 5 years down the track. 12 people has turned into a team of 210 people.
That's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah. I mean, about 100 of those here in New Zealand, and another 100 in the US, and another probably 10, 15, 20 scattered around the world. So that's
Explain that. Around the world because?
Because we now live in a work from anywhere world.
Yeah.
We have researchers that are based. One of our researchers is in Slovakia. We have another one of our key researchers lives in Grenoble in France. So people can and do. Another one is in Portugal. Can and do live and work anywhere in the world. And we by virtue of doing the sort of technology we do and attracting the sort of money we've attracted, I mean, we are extraordinarily well known on the world stage. We are regarded as the world's leader at what we do. So, I mean, we don't have problems attracting talent and capital from the best places in the world and from the best people.
That's a remarkable story anyway. But let's go back to this piece of technology. Explain exactly what it does, and that's a technical side of it, but what the benefit of it is.
Sure. So very simply, so you go look at our website, and you'll see you can actually talk to Sam, who's one of our digital, we call our employees soulmates.
Autonomous animation enables digital people like me to take input from the environment and respond in real time. We've now significantly enhanced my ability to respond emotionally, give great eye contact, and react to my changing environment. This makes for a truly engaging interaction. I was made in the groundbreaking digital DNA blender and effortlessly launched using our ddNA Studio with only a few clicks. My identity and personality were crafted by blending features like skin texture and tone, face shape, eye color, voice, language, and of course, hair.
Sam is, you can access from our website, and you can have your first conversation with a digital person. So Sam is, I'll put this in the context of Hollywood and a Hollywood movie. So Sam is a CGI character, so computer generated image, made by CGI artists. So any of the Pixar movies, Toy Story, for example, that's CGI. Yeah. So part of what you're seeing is CGI, and then the second part of it is animation. So how do we bring the CGI characters to life? Now, in the movie industry, those CGI characters are animated by actors, by real people who perform the role wearing motion capture suits. It gets captured by special cameras, data gets collected, and then literally the CGI character is brought to life by the actor-driven data. So that's traditional CGI, traditional animation. It's all pre-recorded content. Now, where what we do differs is one, so we have the CGI, incredibly, astonishingly realistic versions of people. But what's different about our technology is how they're animated. So we call the technology that we've created is autonomous animation. So autonomous animation is a really simple concept because you and I, we are autonomously animated. The words you are choosing to ask me questions in this interview, it's not you, it's your brain. Your brain's animating you. My brain's animating me. Your brain's animating what you hear and how you feel about it and the emotions you express based on what I hear. So what we've done with our technology is we've created a digital brain, so a working, a simple working model of a human-like brain, which enables our digital people to be autonomously animated in real time in an interactive session.
We're proud of how far we've come and excited to bring technology to life.
So we put our digital people to work for big brands. One of our recent projects is with Nestle. So the big food ingredients business. They've created Ruth, and Ruth is a digital cookie coach.
Hey there, I'm Ruth, the Nestle Toll House cookie coach. Let's kick things off with the classic Nestle Toll House chocolate chip cookie recipe. I can take you through it step by step. Or, would you rather work on a new one?
I'd like to customize my cookie.
I really think you're going to like putting your own spin on the classic recipe.
Okay.
So you want to bake.
Ruth do?
She teaches you how to make cookies, chocolate chip cookies, using, of course, Toll House ingredients. You, Kim, can go have a personal brand interaction with Ruth, face-to-face brand interaction.
If I've had a disaster baking some cookies, can I ask her how to fix it?
Well, she might be able to help you how to fix it. She might tell you that you forgot some key ingredients. She might help you not have a disaster by checking that you've got all the ingredients you need to start with. So this is what we call a customer experience, or a personalised customer experience.
There's a world of opportunity here. And I'm going to leave you with a question. In New Zealand, you've made an incredible contribution, both to the debate and to the business. Is New Zealand a fertile place for more avatars of Gregg Cross?
Well, the world doesn't need more of me, but
no. But are there people coming through that you see? Yeah,
look, I mean, over the last 20 years, our startup ecosystem has grown up. More and more people are attracted to work as entrepreneurs and to start building businesses. More and more businesses from New Zealand can attract, like ours, like Rocket Lab, can attract, the same type of money as from the best VCs on the planet. I mean, all of our venture money has come from offshore, and we've taken it from some of the biggest and best VCs on the planet, just as Peter Beck has at Rocket Lab. So, our companies can attract money internationally at an earlier stage. So, so of course, you can, we live in a work from anywhere world now. So it doesn't matter where people are in the world. The
tyranny of distance is being taken
so there's tremendous opportunities, but there's also tremendous threats to New Zealand, and this is where we as a country have to shift gears at this point in time. We have to start asking better questions and different questions.
Well, Gregg, you've opened up our minds to these opportunities, and I suspect you're going to spend the next 10 years of your life living a virtual life in cyberspace. So thank you for coming on Business at the Speed of Coffee. And next time I'm going to have your avatar of Gregg Cross on the show.
Thanks, Kevin. Cheers.